So there's four different ways in which redemption could happen with the Blessed Virgin. So from St. Thomas's denial of the other ones, we'll see which one is going to stand out as true. So the first way in which somebody could be redeemed is in the ordinary way. That is, Christ saves by removing through his grace the mark of original sin already present in the soul. Notice this is actual original sin, not merely the debt of original sin. And then second, we can have an extraordinary way in which by removing the stain or contagion from the flesh about to receive the soul is preserved from sin and its stain, preventing it from actually incurring it. So in this way, the flesh is something which is cleansed. This is actually the one. This is the option that Saint Bernard ends up condemning as a heresy. The second one is there's the stain of the flesh is removed. This is what St. Thomas responds by saying, this is impossible because grace cannot inherit the body. This is impossible because then this would be something which would be, sorry, I don't know why I'm blanking. This would be something which would be derogatory to the universal headship of Christ and so on and so forth. This is the second way in which this could occur. And in the third way, there's another extraordinary ways. So the other extraordinary way is by infusing grace into the soul before, in the order of nature, it joins the infected flesh, preserving the soul from original sin, even from the personal debt of having it. So in this way, there's the preservation of a personal debt. So kind of imagine this. You have the soul, let's say you have the infected body right here. So the body of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the fetus, before the infusion of the rational soul, is infected with the debt of original sin. That is the sort of instrument or proximate cause which would bring about original sin in the body. So what this position does is this position says that there is the soul right here is graced. So the soul is given grace and then comes into contact with the body. So this contact with the body right there is what cleanses the stain of original sin from the body. So this is something which is denied as well by St. Thomas. Because remember, as we talked about before, the person of the Blessed Virgin Mary is constituted by the joining of a rational soul to her body. That's the only way in which we can speak of a debt, a personal debt. Because her parts, that is the part of her body, even with the animal soul rather than rational soul, that is not the person of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Because the person of the Blessed Virgin Mary must be something which is constituted by the rational soul, joined with the body, because a person is an individual substance of a rational nature. So when it comes to the person of the Blessed Virgin Mary, there needs to be a contracting of debt. So in this system where you have the soul is graced, joined to the infected flesh and cleanses the flesh, there's never a personal debt. There's never a personal debt. So this is also thrown out by St. Thomas. And this is what he denies in Tertia Par's question 27, article 2, response to the second objection. He says that the soul of the Blessed Virgin must contract original sin. What does he mean by that? He's talking about the contracting of the debt. Again, in context, he's always speaking about the debt. Why would he just switch over to the privation of original justice? It wouldn't make any sense. Any sort of actual contagion of original sin. That's not what he means. So there's a fourth way, because he's rejected all of the ways above. So in the second and the third, he explicitly is rejecting in multiple places, especially in Tertia Par's question 27, article 2. This is what he's rejecting there. So it can either be the first way, which some say that this is the way in which Our Lady's redeemed. Some say that, but we'll see later that this is impossible. But in this last way, this is another extraordinary way, not the ordinary way, where the rational soul is understood to join the infected flesh before being sanctified by grace, before an order of nature. Then the person made of flesh and soul is not preserved from the personal debt of incurring sin and its stain, but is freed from it. Freed, notice, from the personal debt. So there's a debt of person that happens from the joining of the rational soul with the infected flesh. And before the debt moves to contagion, so goes from Our Lady having the debt of original sin in her person, to having the infection of original sin in her person. Before there's that movement from debt to infection, there's some sort of preservative grace. But the difficulty right here is that ex professo, St. Thomas does not adjudicate between 1 and 4. There's no adjudication which occurs between 1 and 4. So St. Thomas never says, hey, I know about the time, and it's in this extraordinary way, of personal debt before actual infection. He never talks about that. Is this a problem? No. And the reason that it's not a problem is we'll see from his other statements that he clearly does not think it's in the ordinary way. So by process of elimination, it's going to be in this extraordinary way. Although he didn't see anything in Revelation which could cause him to make a certain judgment of this matter, as he talks about in his quoted living. He didn't see anything in Revelation that could have him pinpoint and say, okay, this is what happens at this moment. He didn't see it. So this is why he never treats it ex professo. Not because he somehow thought that the soul of the Blessed Virgin incurred the stain of original sin, which we'll see from other places, as I said, is impossible. He would be speaking out of both sides of his mouth. From his principles and from the conclusions that he draws and from the certain statements that he makes about the Blessed Virgin, this is just completely impossible. This is just not something that St. Thomas held to. So that